Well, there you go, folks. Just gone past 7 o'clock. You're in Queensland, Australia, broadcasting from Springwood. Of course, it's 7 o'clock, normal time for Queensland. We don't jump to daylight saving. And for our friends, New South Wales and Victoria, Tasmania, and ACT, of course, 8 o'clock. And in New Zealand, it's 10 o'clock. And our co-host, right at the top of the totem pole, Andrena Forrest, co-host, all the way from Dorset, UK. It's currently 9 a.m. in the morning. And so without further ado, I'll pass you on to Andrena and she can introduce our guests.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to wherever you are in the world. And if you're listening to the replay, today is the 15th of December, 2022, and the days are catching up fast to Christmas. So I'm going to mention the C word now. Today, it's our great pleasure to have Indiana Jones II, Doug Miller, who is going to share his story about how he came into, I think, dragons, but he says dinosaurs. So I'm looking forward for you to share. I mean, I don't really know much about dinosaurs, to be honest, so this will be an education for myself. But my grandson, who is 6, Lewis, he knows them. He's got books. He's got dinosaurs. He absolutely loves dinosaurs. And it amazes me how they get the names right, because I can't even pronounce them. So without further ado, welcome, Doug Miller. And I'm really looking forward to you sharing your story, because I know dinosaurs came to you a bit later in life, didn't they?
They certainly did, Andrena. Yeah. Thanks to my parents, really. Out of the blue, they gave me a birthday present in the early 90s, a book about Gondwanaland and the creatures by 2 Australian paleontologists. And then shortly thereafter came the BBC's Walking with Dinosaurs, and I got a bit interested in it. And then I discovered Winton and the Australian, well, I didn't discover the Australian Age of Dinosaurs.
Oh, really?
No, not really. But I, sitting in a dental surgery one day, picked up a local newspaper and started reading, flicking through it, waiting my turn to sit on the torture chair, and found this advert from the Queensland Museum looking for volunteers to come into a place north of Rockhampton called the Mount Etna Bat Caves. Wanted people to come and pay for the privilege to come and dig in the bat shit. And I thought that appealed to me, because I was at the time a tax officer, so I was always dealing with a lot of shit. And so I rang up the guy whose name was there, a guy called Scott Hucknall. Didn't know who Scott was. Soon found out, one of Australia's leading paleontologists. And he said that it had been cancelled. I said, oh, that's bad luck. He said, but if you're interested, call this lady, Judy Elliott, in Winton, because they had digs out in Winton. I go, really? So I called her and couldn't get on that particular year, which was 2005. But she put me on the list for 2006. Got out there with a bunch of people staying on a property, their property actually, the Elliott's property, and staying in the shearers' quarters and going out and digging in the dirt looking for dinosaur fossils for a week and paying for the privilege. And I have been going back ever since. I'm more into the prepping of the fossils now. I have a few bone issues of my own that make it difficult for me to get up and down in the dirt. So I'm happy. I'm happy to clean the fossils.
I know what you mean.
Yes, it's not pleasant. And
No.
if I jokingly say I curse my father's genes because it's his side of the family that's landed me with these issues. But you live with what you're born with, so you don't worry about it. Yeah, so that's a brief summary. And then I discovered Mongolia, China, Argentina, and I've been to those places mainly looking at museums. If anyone's ever heard of Patagonia Titan, I've seen the actual fossils. Been in
Say
the
that again
background.
a bit slower.
The biggest dinosaur so far found is Patagonia Titan.
Right,
Patagonia. He was humongous. About 70 to 77 to 80 tons.
Wow.
Of lumbering monster. And I've seen the vertebrae and other bones. Not the I've seen the replica too in New York, but the actual fossils, smoked it big. So yeah, they have become a fascination. You said earlier about kids. Nah, big kids like me that get hooked on these dinosaurs. I'm surrounded by dinosaur paraphernalia. Love it. Keep going back to prep because you get your hands on something that no one else has ever seen, and it takes it's very special to see what the creatures look like, how they're finally constructed. One of the I'll show you a model here shortly. One of the probably the most prominent dinosaur we found is one called Australovenator wintonensis, a mouthful.
Gosh.
And this is a replica of what he looks like. Oh. So everyone out there, you'd think he was a velociraptor. Well, no, he's not. He is a raptor. And if you ever look at the dinosaur movies that come out, and the villains, they're always this sort of creature.
Yeah, they
so
are.
That's Australovenator wintonensis. Australo meaning southern, Australia, southern, venator, hunter, wintonensis from Winton. He was found in a pit with another dinosaur, Diamantinasaurus matildae. Now, the Diamantina is a river up in the area of Winton, and matildae is a titanosaur. And at first we thought it was a love affair, but no, it turns out he was probably scavenging on her, and she managed to kill him. So yeah, it's a fascinating journey. Once you get into this stuff, I've helped uncover him. I've helped clean up some of his fossils. And myself and the other volunteers up there, we will never be known ourselves, but we and our families know we've contributed to uncovering Australia's natural history, and that is a buzz.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, they keep me coming back as Jeff is flicking up some pictures out there. That's what the land looks like. Flat, black soil, hard as cement, and you're in there with small tools. Oh, well, they take the top off first. They take up about first 1.5 to 2 meters of soil, because that's when the fossils are usually down in the clay underneath.
So how do you know where to find them? Like, have you got some sort of device it picks up?
No, all of the property owners in the area out there, they know their land, they know what's on it,
right?
And they know where there are fossil sites. The fossils work their way to the top of the soil. They might be, say, 2 or 3 meters under the ground, and it's very hard, very cracked, very dry soil out there. And as the soil cracks, that crack is filled with water, dust, and it seals up. And over anything up to 50,000 years, we think that's me in the picture with the arms out. That's me in my red shirt. But as it cracks, anything caught in the crack gets lifted to the surface, and then the farmer spots it, calls up Dave and says, "I think we found some more fossils." Wow. Dave Elliott shuts out. Fossils. GPS the site, so they know exactly where they are. And then we start scraping. Once you get down to that level, you're using paintbrushes, chisels, because it's hand just gouging away, and you wear gloves. I learned after the first year, you wear gloves. And then we get the fossil, we pack it, with tin foil, cover that in paper, wet paper. Then we plaster it. That's the fun part, being a big kid again, playing with in the mud, playing with the plaster. And they load them onto trucks. The gentleman on the left in the black hat sitting down, that's David Elliott. And Scott Hucknall is standing behind him. Matt White and Keith is one of the workers there. And that's what some of the fossils are just wrapped up like that. That big one you see with looks like an S on it, but it's a shadow. That weighed about 400 kilos.
Wow.
And I think that's probably the one that a friend, June and I started working on. We started working on it in the first week. It took 3 weeks to get it to that stage there. So yeah, it's fascinating, and that's part of the stuff that's sitting in the storage at the museum at Winton. And a lot of that stuff, that's a fairly old photo. A lot of that stuff's been worked on, but you can just tell by the odd shapes. And that's what the people are doing. The guy at the front there is George. The lady up in the blue standing up talking to the people, that's Trish. And that's a crowd coming through trying to find out more about dinosaurs.
Wow, amazing.
Yep. Anyone can come, any member of the public, if they come up to the Australian Age of Dinosaurs in Winton, any member of the public can sit down and be trained to do that. If you do a 10-day training course, you could end up with one of these, honorary fossil technician. How's that? That's me. That's my badge of honor.
Very good.
There's probably around 250 of us over the years. And once you get one of these badges, you can come up anytime. You can book yourself in for a week, 2 weeks, 10 weeks. Stay up at the museum. There are quarters up there. You all know what a donga is? Like a worker's bedroom on a work site.
What was it called?
A donga.
A donga. Okay.
Donga. You get up there, you look after yourself, cater, and come in every day, put in 7 to 8 hours of cleaning fossils.
I see you're sponsored by the Port of Brisbane there, eh?
Yeah.
That Port of Brisbane, yeah, they've given quite a few containers up there. The containers are obviously temperature controlled. So once the fossils have been unearthed, once you take them out of the ground, they're subject to the oops.
I love it.
So as I said, anyone can come and work. Even he got a job. But once they come out of the ground, they're subject to decay. You can see in that picture the little bottle that says paraloid.
Yeah.
Paraloid is the binding agent that is squeezed into them. It put acetone and plastic beads are melted together, and then they drip it with the eyedroppers into the bone. The bone absorbs it. The acetone dries out, and the plastic bead binds the rock together. And on site, when you dig them out on the ground, they put very weak paraloid in to try and protect them, because as soon as they're exposed, they start to decay, and you don't want that. So yeah, that tool you're seeing there is a Wen pen. It's just an engraving tool, and it's you can sit that one obviously that I was working on, and that took a lot of time to work on it. Because the big vertebrae and that sort of stuff. If you ever, you know what a vertebrae looks like. They're twisted and gnarled. They're very big, and you've got to try and get all the dirt out. There we go. There's paraloid. I did write a poem that I sent you about paraloid. So I don't think we can. I'm never allowed to say it in public, but some people misunderstood. That's Banjo, one of Banjo's claws. We call Australovenator Banjo, after A.B. Banjo Patterson, a famous Australian poet, who wrote Waltzing Matilda in that region. So it's the Diamantinasaurus matildae, Waltzing Matildae. That's a replica of the claw.
Wow.
You want to see what the claw looks like?
Mm. Oh my goodness.
That's
Right.
Banjo's claw. That's life size.
Wow.
Is it a plaster of Paris or something? Isn't it?
Sorry?
Is that a plaster of Paris job? Is it?
No, it's one of those things. You know, you scan them and.
Oh, 3D printer.
Okay. Yeah, printed. It's a printed copy. They printed seven or eight. The Queensland Premier got one, and I bought the first one that was available to the public.
Okay.
I never did tell my mother how much it cost me, and I will not say it now in case she's listening.
Oh, I bet she knows.
She probably does. She did, I'd say, but I don't mention it. I did get a discount because I was a volunteer, but even so, I had to sneak that one back. But it's and by the way, I hate to say it, but the claw, I've discovered after the year after I bought it that it's anatomically incorrect.
Really?
Well, the big claw should be where the middle claw is. I said, you buggers. But I've got the first one, and I've got the certificate, and I'm never letting go of it.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants you, they're going to have to find you in Australia, and it's a big place, mate. So.
Oh, some people know where I live.
Yeah, they have more chance of finding a dinosaur than finding you, Dougie.
Well, the finds are increasing every year. So I haven't been on a dig here for a couple of years, but they are every dig every year, sometimes two digs a year, and that digs go for about 3 weeks.
All right.
So you have week 1, week 2, week 3 people coming in, and quite a few people repeat offenders, as I call us. I did about 7 in a row, and I've done 8 here, and I've done 3 in Mongolia. So I think the bugs got me.
Sounds like it, eh?
Yeah. If anyone wants the dimensions of that character, I'll read him out to you. He's about approximately 5 meters long, 1.5 meters at the hip, approximately 500 kilograms, and could run you down without any trouble. He's got articulated claws. Have you ever seen T-Rex? T-Rex has got his little arms like that. Well, Australovenator is articulated, so his arms can go out. So he can wrap his arms around you. 3 claws will dig into you. Cool. 72 teeth. We've got his jaws. And on the if you have a look at the ankle, there's another little hook there that can disembowel you. So a fun creature. We do love our nasty creatures here in Australia. They're not everywhere around, but he would make fun of you. He would run you down. If anyone's ever heard of Lark Quarry, it is most likely that he is the creature that caused the stampede, because they've got the footprints out there. They've made a replica of his leg, and would you believe they fit into the footprints at Lark Quarry? So really? It's most likely that he is. But here's something for you, Andrena, and your English and Scottish listeners. They believe that he has a cousin from Scotland. They've got footprints that are similar. So I don't know much about the Scottish one, but there you go. Okay, you're looking now at the Judy site. This was 2017, and again, I was on the week 1 of this. And this was very spectacular because they found, I think it's 8 or 10 articulated neck vertebrae. You can see at the bottom with the long pole next to it. Articulated vertebrae are very rare to find, as are skulls. We've got pieces of skull, but very hard to find these. On this particular dig, they also found stomach contents. Wow. Now, I'm not sure of the number, but there's probably only about 7 or 8 stomach content fossils have ever been found in the world. So needless to say, very proud of that. And they named it after Judy Elliott because it was about time something got named after her. Although she's had a couple of fossils, I think, named after her. But a site was named after her. And that was quite a very hard dig, actually. Very, very hard soil. But they've been working on Judy's fossil in the laboratory for a few years now. And they're very close to it. If I can think of where what did I find? I think I was up in the bottom right area where it says left femur. I was in that area with doing my digging. I'm not exactly sure which part of one of those bones that I helped to start to uncover. I didn't pull it out. So yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. These are, while there are people like me volunteering to go there, these are scientific digs. They're not party digs, although we do party afterwards every day. I'll describe what goes on the dig shortly. But yeah, that's Judy's cast. See, it's been wrapped and that's been taken out. Half of it will be prepped. Then they'll recover it, flip it over, and start on the other half. So it takes a long time to do them.
A labour of love, eh?
It is. Quite a few times when I've shown up to do my stint, as soon as I walk into the prep shed, I know what I'm going to get. There's usually a big vertebrae sitting in a corner where they set mugs like me to work on it. And by the time I think the best way to measure how much work is done on these, but I don't think they do it, is to just count the amount of dust you create. You create so much dust. I mean, you can see the exhaust fan there to pull it out. But at the end of each day, the pile is taken out, the dust is taken out, the dirt is taken out, put around a tree, because that will be sieved to see what else is in there. And the sieving is very important. They've pulled teeth out, found teeth. I've only ever found a crushed tooth, and I'm very upset about that. I wish I'd found more, but I found a little piece of crushed tooth. So that's my aim, is to find a tooth one day. So you never know what you're going to find. Okay, what picture you got next, Jeff? So I can start talking about that.
That's
or do you want
we've got.
Okay, well, I'll describe.
From the, hang on a second, I've got something. You're going to be ripped.
God.
Okay. Now, oh no, I've just put it on here so people can understand what's going on. So I've gone and plugged in Winton, Queensland, and how the Earth looked 300 million years ago. So that little red dot there is Winton. And this is where the dinosaurs are found. So if we go 200 million years, still getting there. We're still trying to find Australia. Yeah, it's still coming together because you've got Gondwanaland and all that stuff, isn't it? Yep. Let's go to 60 million years. We start to see some sort of formation there. We've got Antarctica down here. We've got the inland sea.
Go to 90 million years.
There you go.
Okay. That's the age of the rocks at Winton. 90 to 95 million years. What's 5 million years? No, yeah.
Not many.
If you can wrap your head around it, good on you. But that's where Winton was. Winton now is where Melbourne was at that time. You move Winton down to Melbourne, and in 90 million years, 95 million years, it's moved from Melbourne to where it is now. So it wasn't dry plains as you saw earlier. It was swamps, forests, and those sorts of things. You know, it's different universe. You saw some of the pictures of how Australovenator was depicted, and he was a hunter. They believe he hunted in packs, small packs.
That looks like a little dinosaur at the top there. If you come down a little bit on that.
Oh, that there. No, that's. Oops, I'll go that way. That's not one of ours. That's I've occasionally done talks in libraries for, and that's a poster that one of the local libraries did, and they were going to throw it out, and I said, bugger that. I got it. And my mother and sister had it framed for me for Christmas, so I thought I'd just put it up the back there. I'm doing another one on the 31st of March for the Wildlife Preservation Society of Queensland, but it's going to be on Mongolia.
So you've got a story to share on Mongolia, I believe.
Yeah. I believe in 6 degrees of separation.
Or less now.
Or less now, yeah. I reckon it's 4 degrees and getting lower.
Yeah.
But on my first trip to Mongolia in 2015, we were in a place called Basin Sav. And there was only five of us in the group. We're in a gur. People call them yurts. They're gurs, G-E-R. You ask a Mongolian, where do you live? You'll point with a crooked finger and say, gur, home, gur. So we were in this thing in the middle of a sandstorm. Never go out in a sandstorm in a pair of shorts, t-shirt and thongs, as I had to do because I had to make a dash to you-know-where. That got ripped to shreds. But someone started talking about 6 degrees of separation. And I had a story about my cousin, Mike. Hello, Mike, if you're listening. You should be. I told you to. And I was traveling in Alaska. I was on a bus trip up from Fairbanks up to the Arctic Circle. As we got on the bus, our bus driver was a college girl, and we'll call her Bobby Sue Joe because they love their hyphenated names. And she started telling everybody about how they're going to sit on the bus, 25 seats, and I'll rotate up to the front single seat. And she said, we've got a treat for you today. We've got an Aussie named Doug up the front with me. But it wasn't me. It was obviously another Aussie named Doug. And I'm down the back, and I couldn't let that go. So I stood up and said, no, hang on, I'm down the back. And he must have had the same bad sense of humour like me. And he said the same, no, hang on, I'm up the front. Poor Yanks had no idea what was going on. So we got to chatting, of course. I come from Brisbane, and he came from Yamundi, a little town north of Brisbane. And I said, I've got a cousin that lives up there. He said, Mike, and he runs a company called Beddington Turf. I always call him my cousin, the guy who grows grass. He doesn't like that, but never mind. And he said, oh, you're kidding. I said, why? He said, well, Mike's laying turf at my new home while I'm on this trip. And I'm going, you're kidding. So I told that story to this group in the tent in Mongolia, in the Gur. And one of the guys in the group, Clint, he said, Doug, are you talking about Mike? So I said, yes. He said, Mike and I have been mates for 30 years. No, you're kidding me. Couldn't get away from him. And on my last trip to Mongolia just a few months ago, Clint was on the trip again. So it was great to catch up with him. Yeah, so I told him I'd mention his name, but these things happen. The worst part about that, not the worst part, the best part about it was I went back in 2016 to do the same trip, but we would be digging in a different site. And there was a Scottish woman in the group, Australian Scottish, and you just look at someone, you know, geez, I know you. She said the same to me. And she ran a gift store in Mullaney, and I was a regular customer. I've got, you're bloody kidding me. So you can't go anywhere. If you talk to people, you'll soon find there's a connection. And yeah, so there are lots of other stories, but I can't go into them right now because they don't involve dinosaurs. But yeah, I'm happy to. I can't believe it. You know, I've met people everywhere throughout the world who've known me or know someone who knows me, and it's just ridiculous. Yeah. Travel, but talk to people. I've got a mate who travels and won't talk to people. You don't know who they are. You don't know what's going on. Everyone's got an interesting tale to tell. You're interviewing me here, apparently, because I've got an interesting tale to tell. Back on the digs. When you go out on a dig, you volunteer to go on a dig. You pay for the privilege of going on one of these digs. You are usually, or not usually, you are always put up in the shearers' quarters. Now, again, these have single accommodation rooms or double accommodation rooms. You're catered for. The cooks are bloody good cooks. Cooks make shearing sheds. Cooks make digs. So you go out up there. You have a slap up breakfast. You go out to the dig site. They'll bring you out morning tea, or smoko as we call it. Back into the dig, into the dirt. They'll bring you out your lunch. Afternoon smoko will come out. You'll come back and you'll have a slap up meal for dinner. And they will have happy hour. So free booze, you've already paid for it. So free booze if you want it that way, and all sorts of shenanigans. Usually have a lecture at night, and it's very easy to go. You're usually in bed by 9:30, and you're knackered, and you go to sleep. And when the generator kicks in in the morning at 6 o'clock, you wake up. So it's fun. You make a lot of friends. You meet a lot of people who you will become friends. Usually end up digging for several years with them, and you just become part of the Australian Age of Dinosaurs family. It's a fabulous thing to be part of. I think one of the best things in life is making friends. And every member of the Australian Age of Dinosaurs, I'm wearing my Australian Age of Dinosaurs shirt, one of 4. Because I go to Mongolia now, I've got a Mongolian patch on it as well. So I've got friends in Mongolia now, a couple of really good friends from over there. And yeah, Mongolian Institute of Paleontology. I spent about 10 days prepping fossils there. One back in 2017, I think it was. So yeah, I have dinosaur will travel. What else would you like to know?
Oh, she's gone off the air.
You're off.
Oh, she turned herself off. She turned herself off.
Oh, I did. I was coughing.
What would you need to know?
Yeah, I was going to say earlier, your friend Clint said what happens in Mongolia stays in Mongolia.
No, not with me. No. Well, nothing happened in Mongolia. Oh, hello, that's a friendly looking dragon. Where did he come from? But it's Mongolia is a fascinating place. I went back this year. I got an invitation last November. Would I be interested in returning to Mongolia for a centenary celebration of the first dig, or first recognised digs in 1922, the Roy Chapman Andrews digs. It was a series of digs over about 4 or 5 years. And I thought, well, let me think about that. Yes. So I went over. Clint was part of the crew. One of his friends, Graham, was there. There was 2 American guys, Ken and Steve. Steve and I have been in regular contact since. And the 2 paleontologists, Phil Curry, one of the world's leading paleontologists, but particularly Mongolian paleontologist, and his wife Eva, an equally well recognised paleontologist. Poor Eva was the only lady amongst us, so she had a fun time, I can guarantee it. So we all had a ball. Because of my bone issues, health issues, I got a bit enthusiastic, not too enthusiastic on the first day of the dig, and started scrambling in places I shouldn't have scrambled, and ended up with severe back pain. So I couldn't contribute, and I'm very, very frustrated with not being able to do that. But it's my own silly fault. But they did find a turtle. Well,
All right.
I'm claiming it, although technically speaking, I didn't find it because we were having a break going up one gully, and I'm sitting on a rock, and Phil Curry said, "Doug, move your leg," and I moved my leg. He said, "You're sitting on a turtle." Couldn't make it out, but there was obviously some sort of fossil in the rock. So I'm claiming that was mine. I found it. I sat on it. So, yeah.
Right. There's a message came up from Carol asking, have you found any giant human bones?
No.
No? All right.
No giant humans. Yeah, I don't think we're going to find human bones with fossils, with dinosaur fossils. We've on that particular point, if anyone of your listeners or viewers heard of Lucy in Ethiopia, she was one of the first humanoid skeleton. I've seen Lucy in Ethiopia, and the group that I was on tour with, I think every one of us, when asked what was the highlight, was seeing Lucy. It was just astonishing. There's 7 or 8 of skeletons like that over there. So yeah, it's just fascinating stuff. If I wasn't interested in paleontology, I'd be very interested in archaeology. It fascinates me. Any shows like that come on, I will watch them. And just it fascinates me what we can learn. Just
So,
oh yeah, Clint. Just regular sized humans, yeah. Clint's a very big. Well, if you're looking for a big human, Clint's a big human, big man,
all right.
tall man. Yeah.
So I suppose in mythology we had the Titans before we had the Olympians. I mean, it's only a matter of time, I suppose, when we find the Titans, isn't it?
Well, you never know, mate. You never know. There's lots of places to dig. If they dig in the right places, anything is possible.
Yeah, because I put up a couple of photos there of dinosaurs. I mean, of dragons, because dragons play a lot in our society. I mean, just in the Buddhists and the Taoists and the Confucians. I mean, it's funny how it's actually played out in Wales, for example. You know, you see, the Welsh flag. It's got the dragon on it. You know, we've got the English version of St. George and the Dragon. So there's a fair amount of bloody things in the UK you think that would come to the surface, you know, with dragons. And, of course, the East celebrates with their fire dragon, water dragons and all that stuff. And their, what do you call it, the Chinese New Year, isn't it? And they do all the big celebrations. So it's a wonder we haven't seen any of their bone structure.
You haven't found any wings in your digs?
No, but we did find a pterosaur a few years back, but not much of it, but enough to be able to be described. And excuse me, one of the most complete pterosaurs found. Only a small creature, not a big, not like some of the big, humongous ones they've found elsewhere in the world. But that was just found in a creek. The creek has been, and water will eventually flow through some of those creeks out there, and it will uncover things that are there. There's big news here in Queensland and probably Australia and in the paleontology world about the plesiosaur found in a place called McKinley up in the northwestern Queensland. So it's only been uncovered recently. So, you know, there's always finds. If people go looking for things, they will find them. I'm astounded by how many. Like when Australian Age of Dinosaurs kicked off, David Elliott was just out mustering sheep one day, and rode on a bike and rode past an odd-looking rock, which turned out to be a very large part of a dinosaur, which kicked off the Australian Age of Dinosaurs.
Wow.
You saw earlier with this big grader scraped the earth out. When the first few digs they did out there, they did what that everyone else in the world did, put the 1 square meter frames down and started digging around and that sort of stuff. And after a while, I realized that was futile because they weren't finding anything. So he brought out this scraper, tore off the top 1.5 meters of soil. And what did you find? Fossils. So it's different. You know, if you look at the pictures you saw earlier, we are in pits. You can see it. They've dug down to get down to those creatures. So without some sort of sign at the top, we've done digs. I've done digs where we've found there was one fossil that indicated on top that indicated there was something there, but you dig down and there's nothing there. So they figured that there's a lot of dry water courses out there. So any bones that have been brought to the top could have easily been washed away from somewhere. We did a site. We were digging in a site. Quite a few years ago. I can't remember the name of the site now. But one of the guys went walking during a smoko break. Mike, he went walking for around a little while. He went about 70 or 80 meters from where we were. Found more fossils sitting on the surface.
Wow.
You just don't know. You can stumble across them. Luck. It's just pure luck that something is there to be indicated that there's a fossil there. And then once you start digging, you've got to hope that there is something more there. And most swimming pool size pits would be enough. If you're doing a dig and you're not finished, put a big tarp over it, put all the dirt back on top, come out next year, pull the tarp off, pull the dirt off, pull the tarp off, and get back into it. I think on the Banjo and Matilda side, I think we were there at least 5 years digging.
Wow.
And it's correct me if I'm wrong, someone from AAOD can correct me, but I think we found they may still be cleaning dinosaur fossils, because there's still fossils that are still in the laboratory. They'll be small, but you don't know what you're going to find. You might find that tooth that I'm looking for in one of those things. So every bit is looked for. Once they've got enough to describe the creature, they put it into the into the showroom up there, and that becomes the type. Anything that's found afterwards doesn't get added to what they've got originally. But the type is the type. That's what they describe the creature as. If anyone in Australia, anyone in the world, wants to come out and have a look at a fabulous museum that's growing, the Australian Age of Dinosaur is at Winton. It's growing. They found several years ago, found more dinosaur tracks that they've taken out of the creek they were in, and they've put them into a big shed, air conditioned, perfect. They've got a dark sky observatory up there as well, and there's only 7 or 8 dark sky observatories recognised in the world, so they've got one there. So now people are going out there to have a look at the stars, because it's clear sky. There's no light pollution. It's got everything going for it out there. It's only 1,500 kilometres from Brisbane. That's an easy drive, you know. Speaking of which, I had a pommy mate. You don't mind me calling you a pommy, Andrena?
No.
It is a term of endearment, he says.
Yeah, right.
Except on the sporting fields, of course. Pommy buggers, I don't know. Adrian, he met him in 2001 in South Africa, and in South America. And he was doing a big trip, and he came out here, and so we wanted to go out and see the dinosaur footprints in Winton at Lark Quarry. So okay, we jumped in my car, headed out, and all he was muttering on day 2. No one told me how big this place was. Australia's big. England or Britain fits 32 times into Australia.
Yeah.
So it's big. You don't want to go, I've been to parties on my cousin Mike's with my cousin Mike, 200 kilometres to go to a party when I'm out in the shearing sheds. That's something else that fascinated me. I used to go out in my uncle's shearing sheds, and I became his wool presser, which was saved him a lot of money.
What does that mean? What's a wool presser?
Well, the shearers carve the wool off the sheep, put it into bins. It is graded, and then the presser puts them into a big hydraulic machine and bags them up.
Right. Okay.
Each bale averages 190 kilos.
Wow.
And my total on one dig was 310. One shearing shed was 310. Now this is Winton. A few pictures of Winton. Just down the road from that pub you saw is the Tats Hotel. I'll give them a shout out. Best meals in town. Whoops.
Is that getting you a free meal?
I'll check with Paul. That's the North Korea. That's a very famous one. President Lyndon Johnson stayed there. American president stayed there. Now, these are some of the pictures from up at the museum now. There's they've got a dinosaur track there. They've got replicas of dinosaurs. They've got those big ones over there. That's what the sauropods look like. So there's plenty to see and do, and you'd be surprised how many palms are out there working. Nutters, absolute nutters, going out and working in the stinking summer heat. There he is. That's Banjo, Australovenator. That's a replica, of course. Very expensive.
And there's other ones out here too.
What was your greatest find for you? What has been your greatest moment in the work that you've done?
I've uncovered certain small fossils myself. One of the big article, I mentioned Judy, June earlier. She and I, June's in her 80s, and she started digging with me 15 years ago. So she was in her early 70s when she started, and she was back and forward every year. So it doesn't matter about age when you go out there. But we found those two articulated sauropod vertebrae, which the big 400 kilo thing I said.
Yeah.
Was probably the best part of that I'd ever been in, because it was just that rarely found articulated fossils, articulate together. So that was pretty impressive. But we just started it. We were always week one. Others put hell of a, that's Tats. That's mine host Paul there. Again, talking to people. Paul and I went to the same college, a couple of years apart. But unless you talk to people, you don't know, you don't learn these things. Winton's a fabulous place. If I had a chance, when I retired, I probably would have gone out there and stayed there. But chances wasn't able to be fulfilled. Yeah. So
that's your open air theatre,
yeah. One of the things, there was a message up from Clint there a while ago about foot tracks in Mongolia. Our first dig was at a place called Basin Sav, TSAV, and we were quite next to some dinosaur foot tracks. And it was very impressive. It was unprotected, unfenced. That's in 2015. In 2016, we paid a visit to it. It was fenced. It had a wooden footpath through it, where it was with little sheds with glass bottom floors, so you could look at the footprints. And I just asked Dr. Tochbata, the leader, the head of the institute, who was part of our group. I said, "How did this get done so quickly?" He said, "Oh, the big mining giants in town. The governor just said, oh, we need this." Bang, they get it. But they're pulling out so much in minerals over there. Rio Tinto, I believe, is the company, and a lot of money going into Mongolia through them. Yeah, so it's they want something. In the town of Dalingazard, they've got this fabulous new museum opened up. Same thing. 2 or 3 years lockdown. What's lockdown? They built this museum. It's fabulous. So yeah, I love going back to Mongolia. And if any of you people out there are interested, check out Mongolia Quest. The 2 guys that look after us. They are fabulous. I'll be back to using them again. I'm plugging them. I'm hoping to get a free trip out of it. Never mind.
So that's something people need to know. Winton, birthplace of Qantas. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Longreach claims it, but Winton is where the first meeting took place about it. And if you go out to Longreach, you'll go to the Qantas Museum, which is again fabulous. Hang on, what do you mean by a short walk? A short walk or a short talk? It's now look, anything. I'll happily promote anything in Western Queensland. It's just a fabulous place, and more Australians are starting to discover it. There's the Stockman's Hall of Fame in Longreach. There's the Qantas Museum. They're just across the road from each other, so you can't miss them. There's lots of things. It's a short walk, very short walk. But you can drive your car. But it's just I'd rather go bush than beach. So if I have a chance to go anywhere in Australia, as much as I love going around the beaches in Australia, I still would prefer, given a chance, to go into the bush, because that's the heart of Australia. I think only about 5 to 10% of Australians live in what we would consider the bush, which is probably outside the 200-kilometre range from the coast. People out there are the heart and soul of this country. So, as I said, Brisbane to Winton, about 1,480 kilometres. Overnight stop up there. It takes about, you'll be there in about 20 hours. If nice and easy drive. And there's lots to see in between as well. I thought you were going to be asking me some questions about my other parts of life and that sort of thing.
Well, come on, then I'm waiting for you. You've got some tax stories to share.
Oh, jeez! I didn't think you'd bring them up, but
what would you like to share?
To all your listeners and viewers out there, I am an ex-tax officer, and now that I am a retired tax officer, I'm happy to talk about it. We only have friends who are tax officers. At least that's what I'm accused of. But I used to be a debt collector, an auditor, and eventually a public education officer. And I used to do seminars. You can tell that I can talk and talk and talk. But I used to do tax reform in the early part of the noughties, and they sent teams of us out, or there were about 30 people, national across the nation, go out and deliver seminars to explain what the tax changes were. And I think I was in Byron Bay, at a weekend of talks that had been arranged by some organisation, and I wasn't the only speaker. Our title was speaker. And there was some guy who got up and did a talk before me about finance or something or other. And he had a skeleton, a human skeleton, as a prop. And he left it on stage when I walked out. And of course, my opening line was, here we go, folks, death and taxes, let's get into it. Got a few looks. But I figured if I was all right, Clint, I'll plug Noosa. Great place. Yeah, don't know about any fossils at Noosa apart from the retirees, but don't tell them that.
Yeah, I've been to Noosa. I like Noosa.
Oh, it is a fabulous place. The hinterland and all that up in that area there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a fabulous place. But another tax story. Again, I was doing a superannuation talk, and it was a "thou shalt not do this" sort of talk. I'm pointing the finger, and it was a very harsh talk because people were making big errors with their superannuation, their personal superannuation. And this was a 3-hour lecture from me. We had a break at half after an hour and a half. Came back in.
No one there.
Half the audience was gone. I said, "Was it me?" or something. I said. They just up and left. The fun things happen. I always tried to inject a little bit of humour into what I was doing because tax is a dry subject. I'd had one question that I cannot get out of my head, or the one answer that I cannot get out of my head is to the question, what can I claim as a tax deduction? Well, provided there's a connection between the income you are earning and the expense you are incurring, it is likely to be an allowable deduction. And I said that so many times, I cannot get it out of my head. I did one seminar one day. You progress through the topics that you want to talk about because someone asked that question. So I gave that answer. Sometime later, we're talking in another area of what we're talking about, and someone asked the question. So I gave that answer 5 times. I was asked that question during a 3-hour seminar. And apparently at the end of it, when I answered it for the 5th time, apparently I visibly wilted on stage. There's some accountant came up to me and patted me on the back and said, "Now you know how frustrated we are." And I said, "Yes, I know how frustrated you can be." But people want to know things. I appreciate it. But some people just get fixated on things. And,
As they say, it was rather taxing on you, Doug.
It was. But I was good at it, man. I never blew my own horn, but I was good at it because I preferred to talk to people than sit behind a desk doing things. As a debt collector, I enjoyed interviewing people, talking to people. Oh God! I got a call from a taxpayer who had a tax bill to pay. It was during a busy period, and I got this call, and this woman said, "Oh, can we defer payment of our tax? Our boat has burnt, had its moorings." And oh, okay. So I took details. Well, I had to take about profits, loss, income, and all this sort of thing. And I said, "And what do you trawl for?" And she said, "Trawl? What do you mean trawl?" I said, "Your boat, your trawler, it's burnt down." Oh, she says, "No, it's our cabin cruiser." "Sorry, ma'am. Pay up. You're not getting time to pay your tax." Well, you've got the money, pay the tax. People's priorities. Mine was getting money out of the tax office, for the tax office. Getting money out of the tax office, very hard thing to do. But yes, lots of stories. I will write that book someday because I've had the wool pulled over my eyes a couple of times. I interviewed this very dapper gentleman from the Gold Coast. They've got a reputation for being a bit like sand shoe brigade, or the white shoe brigade down there. And he needed time to pay. And I said, "Oh, okay." He had pretty good reasons, so okay. So he left the office, and I walked back to my desk, and then one of the other guys said, "Hey, Doug, isn't that the bloke you were just interviewing?" Because I was at ground level. And I said, "Oh, yeah." He was getting into a Bentley.
Oh.
And he had this long-legged, tall, blonde woman. He was in his 70s. She would have been less than half his age. She was waiting for him by the car. I said, oh, God.
So that was his expense account, was it?
Yeah, probably. So I let it go for 2 hours. Then I rang him. I said, oh, Mr. Jones, whatever his name was. I said, yeah, lovely car you had. And I said, he said, what's going to happen? I said, you're going to pay your tax. You're not getting your deferral. You know, he wanted time to pay it. He just didn't want to pay it when he had to. So, you know. No,
fair play.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah, good try.
Yeah.
For a while. But no, as soon as I saw the car and the girl, I've gone, no way. Oh dear. But lots of stories like that. I will write a book. I won't mention names because I can't remember names. Their names.
Oh, it's just as well then, maybe.
Yeah, just as well.
Okay, so on your little preamble, I said you went down to Antarctica. So you're part of
Antarctica. Yeah.
Indiana Jones, and you've done a lot of travel around the world, and of course, one of those.
Been to every continent. Yeah, I've been to every continent. I haven't been to every country. I'd love to go to every country, but there's certain countries at the moment that I would not go near. There's something strange. On the last trip to Mongolia, myself and Steve, one of the other guys, was walking around Ulaanbaatar, and we got a bit of assistance from a young Mongolian guy, and just with directions and that sort of things. And he mentioned that he and his wife, he was still a student, but he and his wife had a 1-year-old son. So I got his details, and I said, I'll send him a little toy koala. So I got home, got the Winton koala, went to Australia Post. Oh, you can't send it. Can't send it. He said, oh, it's on the banned list. You can't send anything to Mongolia in the post. I said, but I've just been to Mongolia, flown in, flown out, and go, you know, why can't I can do it, but my post can't go? And they said, no, it's on the banned list. Oh. So I sent it to Steve in America, and he sent it to them. But the US Post won't send it because it's missing some 9-digit code. So now we're trying to track down this 9-digit code to send this kid a little toy koala. Well,
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. But in the Antarctic, that was a fun time. I had a 28-day cruise. Day 8, fractured my ankle on board ship. Well, sorry, I didn't know I fractured my ankle. I thought I'd sprained my ankle. But I found out several months later that, in fact, I had a spiral fibula of my fracture of my fibula. So the physio was wondering why it wasn't responding to treatment.
Not surprised.
You know everything about bones now, don't you?
Yeah, well, everything comes down to about bones. And if you ever get the chance to go to the Antarctic, folks, go for it. Clint, that's why I don't drive a Bentley. Clint, I'm retired.
Yeah.
Well, at least I know Clint's paying attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
How
are we going for time? Oh, we're over time.
No. Well, only just. But it's been really fascinating. I've really enjoyed listening to your story and sharing because, like I said, I don't know anything about dinosaurs apart from my grandson's books and toys. So
tell him to check out some Australian dinosaurs.
So is there any, like Winton, there's a lot up there. Is there any reason why that sort of area that you're finding so many?
Well, if you have a look at Australia, the Great Australia, the Gulf of Carpentaria, there was a great inland seas used to come through that area there. So it's former oceans, so seabed. In the land in that area was swamps, river deltas. So as the creatures died, they would be eventually covered by the soil. So now, but as the Winton's moved north to where it is now, it's drying out And it's people on the land will find the fossils because they'll be on the surface somewhere. There'll be some indication. So yeah, it's becoming a hotbed up that way. I mentioned the plesiosaur that was found recently on a property near a place called McKinley. 3 sisters go out every weekend, hunt for fossils, and they found this small bone, and turns out to be a full skeleton.
Fantastic.
So that's just unbelievable, fantastic, unbelievable. So people start to get interested in these things. They start to look for them. They start to dig for them, and they find them. And it's always, I noticed the crew up at Winton at the museum, they would say, people ask, how much work have you got ahead of you? And they say, 10, 20 years. Bullshit. 100 years. There's that much that they've found that it takes years. The bigger the fossil, it takes years to clean it. There's about 250 plus volunteers that go out there. And you can only work at certain paces. The bigger the fossil, the bigger the longer it's going to take to clean. So there'll be plenty more for you when I get out there next May.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, it's been an absolute delight listening to you and sharing. It really has. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, I hope I've got a few other Aussies lined up to go out there now.
I'm sure you will.
A fascinating place. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll share this anyway. So we'll share the recording. Yeah,
and if you go to Mongolia, anyone goes to Mongolia and hooks up with Mongolia Quest, mention my name. Gerald and Badril, the guys in charge, they'll know me.
Right. Oh, there we go.
Well, thanks very much for taking the time to listen. Good on you, Clint.
No, it's been fascinating. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you very much for sharing, and good luck with the rest of your digs and wherever you go and wherever you travel in life. And
well, thank you.
Yes, so thank you very much once again. And this is our last show of this year. So we're going to be having a Christmas break, and we'll be back in the new year. So there will be a flyer going up giving dates, and we're just wondering, in place of us not being live on the show, if anybody's got any particular replay that they would like to listen to, we thought we'd play a rerun of some of our guest speakers. So please message Jeff until I can get back on Facebook or Instagram. I've been disabled at the moment and I've been good. I haven't done anything naughty. So yeah, so if anybody wants to message Jeff currently, anything they'd like to listen to, that would be fantastic. So on that note, I'll say I wish everybody a happy Christmas and a new year. And over to you, Jeffrey.
Okay.